Welcome, friends. This is Britney, and I am so excited today to have James Smith here in the studio with me. I know you're going to enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome to FBC Missions So That podcast. This is an encouraging place to hear how God is working in and around us. We know that He blesses His people so that they can bless the world around them. Join us as we discuss how to join God in all that He is doing. Why is God working in our life, church, and community? It's so that through us, the world will know that He is near.
All right, friends. Well, welcome to the FBC Missions So That podcast. And I'm so excited today to have James Smith here in the studio. He is a servant of God. And I am so blessed, James, that my family, we got to meet you about a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, as we were preparing for the Mexico family mission trip, which was incredible. So thank you for coming in today.
Happy to be here. Excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. I know I didn't realize that you do maintenance here at the church as kind of your I was kind of telling you a second ago, like your retired job.
Yeah, it's kind of like my retired job, but it's also kind of a different type of ministry for me, and a ministry to buildings to be prepared for people to receive God.
I love that. Yeah, just in talking to you, it's fascinating all the ministries that you actually do have. And so we're going to get to talk to you about that today. And I was hoping, if it's okay, let's start off with your passion for taking families on mission trips. So we're in the middle of a series on the family mission trip here
Right.
at FBC. We've interviewed the Burleson family,
Right.
minus the mom. We're going to do a mom's podcast also,
Awesome.
And then we're going to have Shauna and Claire in. And so I really love hearing from you because, really, from what I've come to understand, is you are, I would say, the founder a little bit of this trip in some ways. If you'll share a little bit about the history,
Okay.
I will say, listeners, if you want to, you can also go back to episode 20. And hear an episode where James was interviewed by Pastor Chad. But will you share with us a little bit about the history of how this all started for FBC and why you have a heart for taking families?
I'll try to keep it short.
Hey, we got time.
We got time, but it can be a long one. I started finding a passion for missions by taking my family on a mission trip. And our first mission trip was across the border to Piedras Negras. And we started working with a local church there. We went there to help build an addition to the church, which that day we found out we weren't just building an addition, but we were building a second story as well. So it became quite complex real quick, but what I found is that I was able to take my family with me, and we were able to experience these journeys together, serving and working alongside people doing missions. My kids could not do much at that time. They were not even in double digits of age yet, so, probably 8 and 6 or something like that. But they were very young. But they got out there and they could move some rocks or push some dirt or they just played around with the local kids, which was great. And so they began to learn about a little bit of missions as they grew up. And as I grew, learned to continue to serve in that area. And we did that for, good 5-6 years of going to Piedras Negras on a constant basis and developed quite a relationship with them. And then, things change, border changes and things like that. So that was put on the side, and we'd started doing some local mission trips here and there, helping some other entities, and that's a whole nother story. But we couldn't find that Mexico trip again for a long time, and then we wound up at my kids. We started First Baptist when my kids were still in youth. My son was a junior. My daughter was sophomore, freshman, depends on how you want to classify her. They're both homeschooled. And we started going to youth here, and we found out they were going to start a mission trip and do their first mission trip. I'm like, we're all in, back to go to Mexico, back for a chance to go to Mexico and all that. And the youth pastor here had worked with a guy in Colorado. Jason Brown had worked with a guy in Colorado called Alfonso, and he was just starting a ministry in and around the Cancun area, and he needed some help. And so we got a big old mission trip going, and this was, the first overseas mission trip, kind of overseas for the youth, but youth in a large number. And we had about 40 people or so. And so my family, we all signed up. We didn't have the money, but God provided. And we were able to, again, experience missions in Mexico again. And then the next year, my son was off to a Christian camp to serve alongside and be discipled. And then it was just me, my wife, and my daughter. And we went. And then the next year was maybe me and my wife. And then slowly my wife stopped going. Then it was just me. And then, long story short, the missionary that was down there that we had contacts with and we were developing a relationship with, things were going great. We were starting churches, doing different things, and it was becoming an exciting time. Cancun was a growing community, a lot of people, a lot of needs, and we were continuing to go out there every year. And then it was kind of like, why do you need me out here, Lord? Why do you need me? And then hold on.
It's all right. It's all right. I just recorded another podcast a little bit ago, and I did the very same thing. So
I was ready to lay it all down and say, hey, you don't need me.
Yeah. And
then we show up with a team of people from the church, and the Alfonso, the missionary that was down there, he quit.
That was why you were there.
Yeah, he quit his ministry, but he also quit his family, and it was devastating. But at the same time, here we have.
Do you remember how many years ago that was, James?
I can't remember. My dates all just kind of fall together in my old age. It was a while ago.
Okay.
It was 15, 16 years ago. But we had just got there in Cancun, and we had a week to stay with a bunch of students ready to work and serve. And the missionary that we're going to serve and work beside of left.
Yeah.
And so it became more of a rescue mission. Mm-hmm. And then I had a chance to, I knew the people well. I had a chance to sit down with them in a room and just say, he had mentored about 5 or 6 pastors there, and they were devastated. And so I gathered those pastors together, and we had a sit down. And
that was with Vita Life?
With Vita Life, Jamie and Darius and YWAM, they were kind of there, but not functioning like they were now. Now they were just establishing their bases, establishing YWAM in the area, and they were definitely not in Kunamaya yet. But so this was with the pastors of Vita Life, and where they focus on. They had a downtown bilingual central church, and then they had started several mission churches outside in the local communities deep in Cancun where poverty was bad.
So Alfonso was overseeing all of that.
All of that. And so gathered the pastors together, and we just sat in a room, and I asked them, what do you want to do? And you could see in their faces they were just devastated and didn't know where to turn. Their heads were down, and they couldn't even grasp what was next. And so one of them spoke up and just said, hey, we didn't come to fail. And so we've hung on those words ever since to continue to believe in what God has for Cancun and what he's going to do there. And so we had a rough 2 or 3 years after that, but then the consistency grew and the relationships grew so much deeper.
Wow. I'm thinking about the fact that you shared before you worked here at the church, you were like project managing for rebuilding. Indeed, you are.
Yeah. It was a whole different role.
But still, you were helping to rebuild. Like, that's amazing that God had you there at that time, and yet you were there to pick up some pieces and help rebuild.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
And if you been a part of missions for a long time, this is not normal. Usually when the missionary that you support leaves, because every other church that had supported this mission left.
Wow.
They left them because the connection was gone.
Right.
And so First Baptist didn't, and we didn't. And so that's not typical model of how we do missions, where you stay in when it gets tough, so to speak, and you stay in when things look like they're going to fall apart and crash. But we did. And then to see what's going on now, you can understand why.
Wow. Okay. So I didn't know that part of the story. My understanding, having just been, my husband and I took our 3 children.
Right.
And this was my perception was, okay, James has been going for a long time. And before it was a family mission trip, it was a youth mission trip. Well, you actually had a family mission trip with the youth mission trip.
Correct.
When it first started. And you saw the impact it had on your children. Will you speak briefly about just the impact you saw early on and how that created this passion and dream for you to do this for other families? Then I want to circle back to Alonzo.
Okay. It's, how to speak, it's my kids were able to see a world that they didn't live in.
Yes.
That that exist where a lot of us don't get to see, and especially growing. I'm not the rich and wealthy from Boerne, Texas, but I'm just the work hard person from Boerne, Texas, and we didn't have everything. But when my kids growing up, everybody else had everything, and so sometimes when you look and see the prosperity all around you, and you don't see the poverty all around you, you forget how to feel, yes, how to serve, how to help. And as I've watched my kids grow up, I still see that willingness to help always, the willingness to see people not necessarily above themselves, but able to see them in a way where they are equals or on a plane where they want to help one another. And they're also good at kind of problem solving and working things out with people versus giving up. My daughter, her husband works in the ministry. He's a young adults pastor, so she's been able to continue on and go on mission trips with him. She went to Africa with him, and so it's neat to see how it continues to. I think it's hard to describe, but it's that attitude of missions that gives you where you still have a soft heart.
Yeah, that I totally agree with you. The attitude of missions, it's like it's so. We saw that, Dwight and I saw that with our 3 kids when we were in Mexico. I mean, it's just it was exactly that for us. We really, because you know here in Boerne, you look around and things are beautiful and green and pretty and big, and just to have that very, very different perspective, it's resonated. I mean, we're almost a month out of our trip, and it continues to resonate, and I pray that it continues to resonate. So I would agree with you. And so you were beginning to see the impact it was having on your family, on your children, and now FBC has had its 3rd year of taking families to Cancun. serving Vita Life and Kingdom Academy School. And so will you speak a little bit about just the trip? I know this year there were 42, is that correct, 43?
42, I think.
42 people that got to go. Of course, FBC's been taking youth upwards of 30 to 40, I guess, for many, many years.
Correct.
And have you gone on all, if not almost all of those?
I missed one trip, but almost tried to go when I broke my back, and about a month out before, and I kept telling everybody I will be there, but I was there in spirit, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I love that you saw the goodness that it was providing for your family, and you wanted to help other families do that. I know our family's very grateful that you saw that vision and that you continued to move forward with that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
God's good.
It is good. And for our youngest isn't in double digits yet, but our oldest two are. And I'm just profoundly grateful. The first time I went on a mission trip, I guess I would have been 45.
Wow.
And I really wish that I would have been able to do it sooner. So,
right.
So yeah, thank you for the opportunity, the vision, the tenacity to say, let's do this. I bet that wasn't easy.
No, it's been trying to make it happen for several years.
Well, I'm very grateful. So tell us a little bit about what families are doing when they go, and if you even want to say about what our youth are doing, and then we'll just kind of circle back again to just the mission down in Cancun. But what does that look like for families and youth from FBC to go down?
Gotcha. So one thing that missions does that especially in young people's lives is it puts them in an area where they don't get to experience that area, and puts them in spots where they don't think they have gifts and talents, but puts them in spots where they have to try to work it out and try to figure out how I can do this or just situations where they wouldn't normally be in. But I've watched how it's, especially with youth and young people, is how it begins to give them some place that they start to see where God is calling them, whereas they wouldn't have recognized it before, so to speak, just being in their normal habitat. And so it literally changes lives because they have to look at it at a different perspective, and they have to look at it in a different environment and situations than what they expected themselves to be in. So what we do is first of all, it's preparing for the trip and figuring out how can we help these missionaries in their area, where they're at during that time. And so we spend some time talking to the missionaries and say, okay, I've got 42 people coming. How can you best use this, or how can we help serve beside you? So like this year, and again, because of relationships, we can do a whole lot of stuff in a week. Some of the ladies were able to spend time with some of the moms in the school and encourage and love on them and share the word with them. You had kids involved in trying to work with Spanish and English and helping one another learn Spanish or English. And then you had kids just playing with kids and trying to find new friends with these kids that are here at the school. They also had an awesome opportunity where some of the kids got to take some of the families from FBC to their house and show them where they live and where they're growing up. And they literally, there's probably no door, but they literally open their doors for you and say, come on in. And they'll probably serve you a meal, they'll serve you a drink, and they're as welcoming as possible in this environment that has not much. Yeah.
And we often think of Cancun, a lot of people think of Cancun, they think of resorts, they think of beaches, but that's not the picture that
Correct.
You see when you go serve.
Correct. They're nowhere near the beach. A lot of these kids have never even been to the beach that live in these colonials outside of Cancun because they don't have the means or travel to get there. They're pretty much, when you're growing up in Cancun and one of the local colonials outside in the poor neighborhoods, all you'll ever know is just the neighborhood you live in usually. Yeah. But there's so much to do, from work projects to house visitations to construction. We were installing fans this year. Sometimes we're mixing concrete. Sometimes we were painting this year. There's all these different things you can do, but at the same time, you're trying to find ways to engage with the people that are there. How can you share the love of Christ? How can you share what Christ has done for you? And it's just neat to see families work together and bond together, and they don't have their cell phones out. They're working together to minister to these people, and however way they feel led. And whether it's painting, they'll jump right in there. Whether it's playing with the kids or doing a quick VBS program for them, they're all in.
It was amazing. I know I was super blessed to watch my children engage with other children, to watch my family hang ceiling fans. And I was really blessed to get to share with the women. I got to lead 2 devotionals with the moms, and it was awesome to see how the Lord used not just our family, but everyone there. And there's so much to be said, for the partnership that's been established, because without that trust, without that partnership, we wouldn't have been able to go and do all that, like you said. So again, it's just like, wow, the things that God has done and the goodness. So going back, we've got a picture of what's going on down there, but going back in the history, we were talking about Alfonso and how that originally brought us there. And then if you want to take us forward from that to where it is now. And I know we have a cool story to tell as well about one of the new church plants. So we'd love to hear just about the history moving forward after that happened the year with Alfonso.
I'll try to hit the highs real quick. When God called me down there, I got called into this mixture of a group of people, and yes, it's Vita Life and there's YWAM, but this group came together for me, and I've always functioned around them, so to speak. So that's Darius and Jamie, which are with YWAM, and then there's Pastor Noe, Alex, and Victor, which Alex and Victor are the only ones left from the original Vita Life. Pastor Noe came in a little bit afterwards. And these people, I feel God has called me to be with them and to find out what God has for us together, as long as He says so. And so we've rode that journey for a little bit. So what has happened? YWAM has gone off, and now they have a couple different bases there. They reach out to several students in doing DTSs. They've even, now that we've had some of our own students come down there and do a DTS with YWAM. And one of our students that went to do DTS for YWAM, he is now, he leads mission trips left and right all the time. He was talking about me. I saw him at Easter, and he says, "Hey, you want to go to Pakistan with me?" I said, "All right, let's go." So he's got the mission bug, maybe more than me. And then they, and this is not normal YWAM, they formed the school, Kingdom Academy, during that time, and because the kids lost the opportunity to go to school, and so they created an opportunity so they could go to school. Short version of it, and it has taken off beyond measure. On the Vita Life side, we've had lots of downs. We've one of the original pastors that was with us after Alfonso left. He was just kind of bucking the system the whole way, so to speak. So we had to let that. He had to go on his own, and then he kind of took over a property that was technically Vita's Life's, and tried to claim that as his house. And we've kind of had a legal battle with that for a long time, and we don't know where that's going to wind up. We'll just leave that to the Lord. But that was the original site where we always went to. It's called Rancho Viejo. So that kind of left to the wayside, put that away, and as God was just kind of preparing things, He was kind of just shifting things around to where He wanted to be. And Pastor Noe came in after Alfonso left, he had been there before, but he had actually he had jumped a train and gotten into Mexico, and he had been a painter like me, and then he went to some biblical training and stuff, and he started being a pastor in Colorado, and lived and worked in Colorado, and then he got sent back to Mexico, him and his family.
Wow.
And that was shortly after, probably the same year that Alfonso left, but not before. And then he came in, and the church at that time was rotating between pastors. They wanted to rotate every 3 months to see who, your pastor this week, your pastor this week, your pastor this week. And so what they did was, the first guy for the first 3 months was Pastor Noé. The guy for the next 3 months was Pastor Noé. And they just realized that he needed to be the pastor of downtown church. And so that came about. And then we have a mission site called El Suerzo, which we kind of used to have a building. We don't. It just meets in the local park, and they have church service there. We have 2 sites at Milagro 1 and Milagro 2, and then we're slowly starting to work in another site called Ranchito, a little further out, a little bit more rugged. And then the years through, I also go to Peru and work with Casa del Aguila some, and I was going there, and their ministries was similar to what Cancun was doing, and I thought they could glean from one another, so I was trying to figure out, well, how can I connect them? So, lo and behold, long story short, the YWAM does a DTS, and every year at DTS they do a mission trip. So we got them to get out to Casa del Aguila, so they did a mission trip to Casa del Aguila. In fact, Noé's son, Aaron, was on that trip, and they got to establish a relationship with them there. And then one trip, I do medical dental trip too, with an organization called Starfish. And one year we decided we would take one of the pastors and Jamie, the director from Casa de Aguila, to Cancun with us and get them to meet them on the ground too. And so this started a relationship between Peru and Vita Life. Outside of, we got First Baptist ministering to both these agencies and working with them, and now we've got 2 of our mission organizations kind of working together, knowing one another well. And shortly that developed into Pastor Andres was with Vita Life. Not with Vita Life. He was with Casa de Aguila, and he committed out there to serve for 2 years, but he's from Tijuana, Mexico. And his real heart was to start an orphanage. So Pastor Andres, real quick, he wound up in Cancun, and he's outside of Cancun, and he's got land, he's building a fence, and pretty soon he'll start foundation on an orphanage out there in Puerto Morales, just outside of Cancun. And that's just, again, when you establish relationships, they just do things.
I'm just listening in awe of all the things, I think of like connecting the dots, how God's connecting so many dots all the time that we can't see or even understand. And you've been a part of so many dots.
Yeah, I can't keep track.
I can't either. It's incredible. And I don't know, I was like, okay, what are all your ministries? Well, no wonder you're like, I don't know. You're a servant of God. Right. And I love the way that the Lord has used you. And even when you've said at times, Lord, why am I going? You go, and it's like I just look at like a multiplier of just shooting. I'm doing these things with my hands right now where he just creates all this connection. And so you're involved with the Starfish Ministries, YWAM, Youth with a Mission. You're not directly involved with any of these, but you go and serve and help connect. YWAM puts on a DTS, Discipleship Training School. I mean, you've just connected so many people. In the world of missions, there's just so much opportunity, and there's so many different unique missions organizations that do things, that get on the ground, that create partnerships. It's almost like James Smith is its own missional entity. So that is so cool. James, and you were talking about, before we hit record, you were talking about a relationship that we got to celebrate, well, not a relationship, I guess a calling that we got to celebrate this year, getting to stand in Milagro 2, which is one of the newer Vita Life churches. The very first day we were there this year, we got to go to church at Vita Life downtown, and we got to hear you deliver an incredible sermon. James delivered a sermon that Sunday morning about the importance of being a part of your church and getting involved and not just sitting in your recliner. It was so good. We got to just be encouraged about the importance of all of us stepping into our church, the life of our church, being part of the church. And so he delivered this sermon. Then we loaded up in the vans, and the kids, the families at FBC, I was amazed. They just took off in the jungle. My youngest, my 8-year-old included. And initially they come back holding hands with 2 little girls, and we thought, well, this might be all that is coming today, but it wasn't. That building was just overflowing at this new church plant, and then we circled around and just were excited about what's about to happen there. But one of the men in the circle isn't the pastor of that church, but the year before, you wanted to share a little bit about the year before and Pastor Diego Berto and his call. So
we had a friend of ours called his name was Benny, and he was one of the pastors there, and he'd been there for Benny was our adopted son, so to speak, and Benny was pastor of Milagro 1, and Benny too, he kind of gave up in life. I was able to marry him and his wife, and then a few years later, Benny decided, kind of like Alfonso, that he's had enough of ministry and being married. And so Milagro 1, we've been struggling with what do we do with Milagro 1? Do we keep it? How can it continue to minister? And Victor was helping keep Milagro 1 and Milagro 2 going. And so there was this faithful old man there. His name was Diego Berto.
And James, before you go into that, I just want to paint a picture for listeners. When we're talking about these churches, Milagro 1, Milagro 2, like we're talking about dirt roads in a jungle, very bumpy, dust, rocks, and a concrete building with maybe holes for windows.
Correct.
Hot.
Correct.
These are these churches that we're talking about, and out really in a very jungle-ish area. I don't know if that's how you would describe it.
Yeah, they're just planted right next to somebody else's house, a piece of land that we were able to get a hold of, and it's very remote and very interesting place. Doesn't look like your normal church.
Villages outside of Cancun.
Yeah, just a very small room.
Yep.
So Diego Berto was a faithful follower there at the church, and he had been, and so we had come down for the summer mission trip for the youth, and my understanding was Diego Berto was the new pastor of Milagro 1. Where I got that, I don't know, but so we went out there to work and serve out there, and then afterwards I like to spend some time praying for the pastors and stuff before we leave. So I said, hey, guys, I want you to introduce Diego Berto here. He's the new pastor of Milagro 1. And I said this, and I didn't realize, but behind me or close by somewhere was his family, and they're like all excited and hilarious, just like, yes, 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 yes. But I didn't realize, I didn't see that. And then we prayed for him and everything and had a good time. And then that evening I got a text from Pastor Noé. He says, hey, me and the pastors need to talk to you. I was like, oh, okay. I don't have a lot of time because I'm on a mission trip, but I'll try to make some time. So I met them for breakfast, and they're like, so a few days later, met them for breakfast, and they're like, hey, Diego Berto's not the pastor of Milagro 1. I was like, what? I was like, Victor, you told me he was. He said, no, I didn't tell you. And I was like, yeah. And they said, no. Pastor Victor's pastor of Milagro 1. I says, okay. I says, I'm sorry. I felt so stupid, so inadequate. And I'm like, well, do I need to go apologize? I'll do anything to make the situation right. I was backpedaling all the way, no, how could I do that? And grace of God shows up, and they're like, we started thinking, maybe we need to train somebody to be there. And what we'll do is we'll talk to Dagoberto and tell him, this is what you need to do to become the pastor. And if you do those things, you'll become the pastor. Well, a few months before the family trip came, I was able to be a part of his ordination service into ministry, sent a video message to encourage him. And then in January, a little bit before January, we did that. And then in January, when we go on a short weekend trip, I got to go down there and pray with him. But the thing is, Dagoberto, think about this, 62 years old, just accepted call to ministry.
That's amazing.
He acts like a 20-year-old. He's happy. He is ready to go. So where's your life, And you still accepting the call to Christ. And so it just encourages me to keep on.
Oh, that is so good. And I'm just now looking at the time, and that's a great ending spot. But that is so true, what James just said. It's like, it doesn't matter how old you are. You never know when someone's premature words might actually be God's calling on your life.
Right.
You had no idea.
Right.
Oh, I bet that was just getting to go down there in January and pray over that. How special was that?
It was very special. It was up there as one of my moments. To have those relationships, to be able to see God in I call it my stupidity, to use my words, and that's another thing to think about. You don't have to have the right words, because even when you mess up the words, God takes those words and uses them. And his family was back behind me, thinking I was being very prophetic, and I didn't have an intention to be prophetic, but God had an intention.
Well, and your words became such encouragement, I'm sure,
right.
for him as he was stepping into that calling and preparation to become a minister. And how's his church doing? What's already going on down there with that? Because I'm sure future trips will get to experience him in that.
Yeah, right now, both churches, Milagro 1 and Milagro 2, are doing a children's camp together. I think it's happening like all week. Oh. And then I think their last day is on Saturday. And I've been seeing pictures on Facebook and stuff, and looks awesome. Some of the kids from the downtown church are being involved and helping, and God's going to do things in Milagro.
That's so cool. And I would just say, listeners, if you've been considering a mission trip as a family for your youth and your family, that are in our youth program here, or perhaps you're just here in Boerne and you're hearing this, I highly recommend it. And James, I thank you for the groundwork that you've laid, for the partnerships that FBC has, long-standing partnerships, and getting to see the kingdom advance in the Cancun area. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's fun. Let's go.
Absolutely. Let's go. And of course, everything James, saying in those conversations, actually in Spanish, I was thinking about that too, as you were talking.
Right.
Well, thank you again. James, is there anything as we wrap it up that you want to add to or share before we hit stop?
No, just like I said, let's go. If you haven't done missions, it's time.
I love it. If you haven't done missions, it's time. And if you're having some questions or you're curious, reach out to the church. For the youth group, you can definitely talk to Pastor Garrett or Pastor Andrea. For the kids, you can talk to Miss Stacy or Miss Teresa. They all work with James to make these trips happen, and you will just be amazed at what the Lord will do.
Yes.
Thank you, James. Thank you for listening. I have no doubt this has been an encouragement to you, and I hope you'll come back again next time. Thanks so much.
We are so thankful that you joined our podcast today. We would love to hear any feedback you may have for us. Remember, Psalm 67 says, "May God be gracious to us and bless us, and make his face shine on us, so that your ways may be known on earth and your salvation among all nations." Don't forget why the Lord blesses us. It's so that we can be a blessing to those around us. Until next time, God bless.